Well, a very warm welcome to you guys. Hi, my name is Cassim, and welcome to another live goal setting workshop. Just a couple of things to begin off with. Firstly, just want to say thank you so much for joining me this Sunday. It's actually raining outside today, so it isn't the very prettiest of days. But nevertheless, you may be hungover today, you may be still in your bed, you may be doing stuff to do with washing, planning something, whatever it is that you're doing. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend the next kind of hour and a half with me. And I hope that something that I say in the next hour and a half or so can in some way inspire you, can in some way help you to step in the direction of your dreams, in some way can help you realize who you are capable of becoming so that you can become your highest, fullest expression of yourself. So you've probably seen what I've titled today, and I've titled today that ultimately, no experience is going to be wasted, and that sometimes actually it takes a little bit of time for you to figure things out. And that really, I think, is one of the great places for us to start in just a moment, to talk a little bit about figuring things out, figuring out life, figuring out what you want, figuring out where you want to go. But before we get to that, just a couple of other things. Firstly, can I ask you guys, if you like what I share with you and you want to support me, you want to join the community, can I ask you to jump on my YouTube channel, Cassim, and subscribe to it? The second thing that I want to ask you to do is I want to ask you to go and get yourself a piece of paper and go and get yourself a journal or a pen. The reason why I'm asking you to do that is because I very strongly believe that in order to change your life, you have to do things that are different. And this whole workshop is designed for you to participate. It's designed for you to take charge of your life. It's designed for you to stop sitting on the sidelines, stop accepting life happening to you, and actually step into your greatness and actually start participating, actually start driving your life in the direction that you want it to go to. And so by you getting a journal, by you actually participating in this, it will ultimately change the way in which your life is going to turn out. I think it was Jim Rohn who once famously said that we may not be able to change our destination overnight, but what we can do is we can change direction. So somebody once said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing in the same way and expecting a different outcome. So if we want to expect a different outcome, we will have to do different things. So in order for us to get different results and to get different outcomes, we're going to have to change some of the things that we've become accustomed to, some of the things that are so-called normal to us. If you do things that are different today, you will be able to have an incredible different type of life than the one that you have right now. So I ask you to go and get yourself a pen, go and get yourself a journal, go and get yourself some kind of paper. And whilst I do that, I want to spend about half an hour talking to you about a number of things that I've prepared to talk to you about today that I think are going to be really important and that will be useful for you in your life if you yield them, if you really think about them. And I want to begin off by saying this statement. I want to begin off by saying that there was a movie that I absolutely love called Doctor Strange. And in that movie, there's a scene called Open Your Mind. That's what the scene is entitled. And it's a remarkable scene, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of what is said in that scene. So one of the people in the scene says that you're a man looking at the world through a keyhole. You've spent your whole life trying to widen it, trying to expand it, trying to know more, trying to do more, trying to experience more. And now that you've got to the point where you have discovered that there is a possibility that the world can be expanded, that you can experience more, that you can have more, you reject the notion because it has not come in the form of what you expected it to. Many of you guys who are listening to me today you felt for a long time that life has kind of a higher purpose for you. You felt that there is something more to life than what you've been experiencing. you've aspired and kind of dreamt about things that are beyond where you started off, beyond what you currently have, beyond where your current skill set, beyond your current knowledge set, right? Beyond your current gifting. You look at your life, you look at where you started, you look at the people around you, and yet you aspire and want, and kind of many times you have this, what's called in psychology, cognitive dissonance, because you're like, well, Cassim, I want to have wealth so that I can help my family, so that I can help other people. But at the same time, it's like, Cassim, I'm dyslexic, Cassim, I'm not that intelligent, Cassim, I've never even run a company. I don't know anyone who's ever run a company. And what I would share with you is this. If you truly want to reach the highest levels of success, and you truly want this workshop to work for you, can I make a suggestion and say to you that you want to have a mind which is open to everything and is attached to nothing? I once read a book which said that the way in which the kind of gateway to enlightenment, the gateway to a higher state, the gateway to all the abundance in life is really about having what is called a beginner's mind. It is about coming to this workshop with an open mind and saying, look, Cass, ultimately, I don't know that what you're going to say is going to work for me, because just because something is work for somebody else, it doesn't mean that it will work for me. I don't know whether you're being sincere. And in fact, just because somebody's being sincere, sincerity is not a test of truth. It is possible for somebody to be sincere, but for them to be wrong. But I'll tell you what, Cassim, I'm going to listen to some of the things that you're going to say, and I'm going to have an open mind about it. And I'm going to listen to them and let them sit with me. I'm going to ask myself, does this make sense? Is what Cassim is saying kind of sit well with me? Do I sense that Cassim is telling me the truth? Like, have I seen similar things to this? Does the data seem kind of accurate to what he's sharing with me? And that is essentially what I ask you to do. Come to this with an open mind. You have nothing to lose. The worst thing that can happen is you try this and it doesn't work out, and then you're back to whatever it is that you were anyway. The best possible scenario, as I see it for you, is you end up coming out of this and you are far much more than what you began off with and where you started. So that's one of the first things that I wanted to share with you. Come at this with an open mind. The second thing that I wanted to share with you, which I think is really important, is the predicament that you are currently in right now does not define you. Some of you guys who are listening to me today, you're going to do this workshop, and when we start talking about where you'd like to be and where you currently are at the moment, there is going to be a war inside of you that's going to start happening, because you're going to start looking at where you are, what you've got, what you've been through, and you're going to think that this is all there ever is. Like, Cassim, look, my entire family have all been big boned. My auntie is big boned. My nephews are big boned. My mum is big boned. My dad is big boned. Everybody in my entire family is big boned. Yet, deep down inside of me, I've kind of seen other people who've gone through transformations, who've gone from big boned to now living in a body that is healthy, that they've got vitality, that they've got flexibility with. But Cash, it can't happen for somebody like me. You don't understand. It's never going to happen for somebody like me. And what I would encourage you to really get to the point of as we go through this workshop is that nothing lasts forever. Where you started, where you are at right now, is not always where you're going to end up. In fact, I love what Jim Rohn once said. Jim Rohn said that the last 2,000 years of recorded history have gone like this. They've gone opportunity mixed with difficulty. Sometimes it's really, really good. Sometimes it's really bad. Sometimes you have 9/11. Sometimes you have the market crash. Sometimes you have World War One, World War Two. You have the Cold War. But at other times you have amazing concerts that are arranged across the world. House prices go up. Interest rates are the lowest, go down to the lowest they've ever been. The price of gold goes up, right? The opportunities for you to go out there and find work, find jobs, find relationships are a lot more abundant than what you began off with. And so I think one of the things that's really important for us as people to understand as we go through this workshop is that change is possible. things will and can get better for you. And I guess you don't have to take that as literal, but I'm just suggesting to you to be open to the idea. Be open to the fact that, do you know what? Yes, okay, your life may be shit at the moment. You may have no money. You may have no girlfriend. You may have no friends. You may be depressed. You may be lonely. But can I just suggest that that is not how things will always be? Just like, even though you may feel that this is how things have always been, things have not always been like this for you. And things can get better, and you can get better, and things will improve and can indeed improve. So that's one of the second things that I wanted to share with you. The third thing that I wanted to share with you is how many people have walked out of your life, they've betrayed you, they've talked about you, they've disrespected you, and that they thought that that would be the best that you'll ever get, that they thought that you would break after that. Isn't it interesting that you're still here, that you're still strong, that you're still moving forward? In fact, if anything, you're actually more positive because of them than they actually thought you would be. People have left you in relationships and they thought you're never going to do better than they would, than you did with them. And yet, you're still positive, you're still vibrant, you're still hopeful that there is somebody out there for you. And that actually, you've now already got to a stage where you have got an incredible level of self-esteem and resilience that you would not have had you not gone through the experiences that you've been through. I love what Steve Jobs once said. Steve Jobs said that we cannot connect the dots looking forward, we can only connect the dots looking backwards. And so we have to believe in faith, we have to believe in God, we have to believe in ourselves that things will work out along the way, right? So some of you who are listening to me, you should not be here. You shouldn't really be here. You shouldn't be this positive. You shouldn't really be this hungry. You shouldn't really be aspiring to this better life. You shouldn't be. Everything in your life should be saying you should be either have committed suicide, you should be a drug addict, you should be a dickhead, and yet you're not. So this really is a testament that clearly what has been happening so far in your life has really been setting you up for something great. In fact, that perfectly leads me to one of the next statements that I wanted to share with you, which is that there is no experience which is wasted. Nothing in life is wasted. Many of you will look at your life and you say, do you know what, Cassim? You know, I've got to the point where I've realized I've kind of been living this double life. I've got to the point in my life where I've realized, like, I'm kind of fake. I've got to the point in my life where I've kind of realized I've not really been authentic to who I am. I've been kind of living this double life. And I kind of feel that what a complete waste of my life. You know, Cassim, I've been in a relationship before, and the relationship, that person has betrayed me, and I didn't really love myself in that relationship, and I don't know how I gave myself in those way and betrayed myself in that way. But let me share with you this, and I want to use a metaphor. When a cocoon, a butterfly emerges from a cocoon, you cannot say the cocoon was a waste of time. The cocoon actually was a benefit. The cocoon served its purpose. Just because now the butterfly has left it and transformed and gone to a different transition or a different evolution of what it was before, it doesn't mean that it wasn't the caterpillar before. It was the caterpillar before, but it's now transitioned. But it needed to be a caterpillar. It needed the cocoon in order to flourish and become the butterfly that it later becomes. And so one of the things that I would share with you as we go through this workshop today is many of you will look at your life, how it's been, and will look at how little you've been expecting of yourselves, and will look at some of the results that you've had in your life, and will say, Cassim, I don't know how in the world I've settled for such a little in my life when there is so much more. Right? I've gone for people who've always betrayed me, who've always backstabbed me, who've always used me and manipulated me, when there is so much more out there for me. Right? When there are people out there who could love me, who will cherish me, right? We will live abundantly in partnership, in respect, in love. How could I have settled for this? You see, what I'm suggesting to you is you needed those people in order to come to the kind of realization that you have today, that you can do better. And the reason why I say that is because there are other people who are currently going through relationships where they're being betrayed, where they're being used, where they're being manipulated, but they've still not realized it. They've still not come to that truth for themselves. Why? Because they haven't gone through what they needed to in order to get to the point where they have this kind of wake up moment, this evolution, right? This redemption in their life. So nothing in your life is wasted. Everyone who's betrayed you, everybody who's stepped on you, everyone who's told you you're not good enough, everybody who's told you you're ugly, everyone who's told you you'll never amount to anything, you needed them because you built that strength, that resilience. Can I suggest to you something that I found really useful? So I've been reading thousands of autobiographies of people who've started with nothing and have built incredible lives. And there is two characteristics that they all possess. In all their books, autobiographies that I've read, there's two qualities that all of them have. Number one is drive. All of them have this incredible drive. They want to succeed. They want to help other people. They want to serve. They want to do well in life. And the second one is resilience. They've gone through so much shit. They've been knocked down, they've got up again. They've been knocked down, they've got up again. They've been betrayed, but they're still hopeful. You cannot get those two qualities unless you've lived life, unless you've suffered, unless you've been betrayed, unless people have stepped on you, unless you started from the bottom. You can't have those two qualities, right? So many people I meet are talented, they're gifted, and they have nothing. And I meet other people who are not gifted, who are not talented, but have a lot. And I've been like, what's going on here? And I began to look at these individuals and I found that the people who didn't have very much and who weren't the most clever, not the most good looking, but were successful, but had abundant lives, they had drive and they had resilience. And those two things alone just put them heaps ahead of everybody else. And that's one of the things that I would share with you. You're actually at an advantage because of what you've been through. The next thing that I want to share with you is if you judged winners' chances of winning based on their mistakes, errors, or upbringing, they would never make it. Let me repeat that. If you judged winners' chances of winning based on their mistakes, their errors, their upbringing, then they would never make it. Some of you guys are listening to me right now, and in your life, the reality is you've been using Sky Bet and you've got yourself in debt. You've had payday loans. You have been in relationships where you've betrayed other people, cheated on other people. You've not really been a great friend. You've never really known what you wanted to do in your job. And even if you went to your job, you've always done the absolute bare minimum that you could possibly do. You've tried to get away with as many sick days as possible. Try to call in sick when you're not sick as possible. When you've gone to work, you've tried to stay in the toilet for as long as possible. Stayed on your break for as long as possible. And so you've kind of ghosted your way through life. But you may be at a point now where you've realized, God, if I'm truly going to be a person of conviction and I want to be a true winner and I want to actually achieve something in my life, I'm going to have to start being a good person. I'm going to actually have to start putting in the work. But if we just judge you based on where you've been and what you've done, well, you're never going to make it. Because, for example, some of you in a moment are going to write down that one of your goals is to get married, to have children. But if we look at your track record with women, you've cheated on them, you've had multiple women, you've been on Tinder whilst dating two other girls who you both told that they're the only girls that you're dating. And they both found out. Right? And even though you've done that, you've told one that you're going to stay with them and you're going to break up with the other two, but you've still slept with the other two. Now, if we look at your life based on where you've started and those errors and what you actually want, which is to be married, which is to be in a stable relationship, which is to be loved, which is to be cared for, right? Which is to have respect, which is to trust somebody, is never going to happen. The chances of you making it are impossible. So I would encourage you to not base your goals and base today's workshop on where you've been and the errors that you've made. Let's draw the line today and start again. Let's draw the line today and create an incredible future. You know, one of the great lessons that I learned in my life was my father made my mum pregnant at 14. My mum had me at 15. After my father found out, my biological father found out that my mum was pregnant, he basically disappeared off the face of the planet. And I didn't see him until years later, like 8 years later. And one of the things that I promised myself as I was growing up was that I never wanted to be anything like him. And in the pursuit of trying not to be like him, I never built or had an idea of who I actually wanted to become, the kind of man I wanted to become into. And inevitably, what ended up happening was that I actually started becoming like him. And so what I would share with you is, draw the line in the sand. Forget about who you've been. Don't use hate and revenge and trying to get back at somebody as your fuel to your better future. Let's draw the line. Let's now create who you want to be. Let's create who inspires you, who drives you, who motivates you, who you want to live up to. That is a future which I encourage you to step into and to start going after. The last thing that I want to share with you is this. The experts can be wrong because when they're making their predictions, they're not accounting for purpose, mission, destiny, or luck. Let me repeat that last statement because it's so crucial. The experts can be wrong. And the reason they can be wrong is that when they're doing their calculations, when they're forecasting, they cannot account for purpose, mission, destiny, and luck. And the reason why is because all of those elements cannot be measured. You see, one of the things that I have found amongst winners, amongst people who've lived incredible lives, particularly when I've studied couples who've been married for like 60, 70 years, I would ask them, what's your secret? And they would say to me, well, we just got lucky. Now, how are you going to measure that? How are you going to measure that somebody got lucky? Well, answer, you can't. Right? When I studied people who had incredible lives, who had achieved incredible feats in their lifetime, and you asked them, how do they do it? They would say, well, it was my purpose. You know, I was driven. It was a mission. I wanted to complete it before I die. Here's the problem. How are you going to measure purpose? How are you going to put that calculation into your workings? Answer, you can't. So the only thing that you can use is two things that unfortunately, again, I can't measure or touch or be able, even many times, to articulate to you, which is that you're going to have to use your gut instinct or your gut feeling and faith. There is absolutely no guarantee that as we go through this workshop, anything is going to work. Absolutely no. There's no guarantee, right? You may be, one of your goals may be to start having an ice cream shop down in Cornwall somewhere. There is no guarantee that if you quit your job as an accountant earning 60 grand a year, which you are at the moment, that dream is going to work out. Even though you may have incredible amounts of savings, even though loads of people may support you, there is no guarantee that it's going to work. But what you can do is you can rely on your gut instinct. You can rely on faith in your ability to figure things out, on your ability to achieve, on your ability to make it happen, right? To step up to whatever the goal is, to step up into whatever the dream is and do whatever is necessary. If you need to take classes, you take the classes. If you need to find a team, you will build the team. If you need to go find funding, you will go and find the people who have the funding. If you need to be more articulate, you will become more articulate. If you need to become a speaker, a writer, if you need to be more confident, then you will step into those different cocoons, those different versions of who you are capable of becoming. So that is what I wanted to firstly share off with you before we start stepping into the actual workshop itself. And I really, really, really hope that you've yielded some of those pieces of advice that I've given you. Really think about those things as we go through the workshop. Have an open mind. Don't judge yourself based on what you've done. Build the future for yourself that you actually want. I love something that Jim Rohn once said. Jim Rohn once said that we go in one of three directions. We run away, based on, we're either being pulled in, sorry, Jim Rohn said that we're either being pulled in one of three directions. We're either being pulled back by the past, we're either being pulled side to side by distractions, or we're being pulled by the future, by our dreams, by our mission, by our purpose. What I essentially encourage you to do in this workshop is to make your future so bright, so inspiring, so vibrant that the main pull on your life is the pull of the future. By the way, before we get into this workshop, I want to just finish with one final thing, which is this. I wanted to know what is the highest level that a human being can reach as a guy. And what I found was, as I was writing and thinking about this, is that one of the highest levels that a man can reach is to go from experimenting to building. A lot of you guys who are listening to me at the moment, you are experimenting with your life. You've been trying stuff. You have no model, you have no mentorship, you have no blueprint, you've just been so-called making it up. Today is a day that you no longer make it up. Because the reason why a lot of people fail is because they have no plan. They have no roadmap. They have no blueprint. This workshop is about giving you a blueprint. This is a plan. If I came to you and I ask you how much money you're going to be worth by age 40, and you cannot say to me exactly how you're going to do it by saying to me, Cassim, well, I'm going to have a book. By Cassim, I'm going to have 3 houses rented out. Or Cassim, I'm going to have a business in which I have dividends. If you cannot articulate that to me, then it means you're making it up. You are experimenting. There is no plan. You're kind of wishing somehow, magically, you're going to step into this brighter future. I encourage you not to follow that path. I encourage you to follow this path. As I said, there's no guarantee it's going to work, but if you believe in yourself, have faith in yourself, and follow your gut instinct, follow what you believe is true, follow what you believe deep down is your truth, I believe you will have an even better future than you could possibly ever imagine. Okay, right, let's go into the workshop. I'm excited for you. I want you to do good. I want you to live an abundant life. So it's really very simple. The first thing that I want you to do is to take a piece of paper or take your journal, take your pen and write down what you want. And in writing down what you want, just go ahead and be crazy. Don't be realistic. Don't be conventional. Don't think about what your parents want you to do. Don't base what you want based on where you've been. Just write down what you want. Guys, can I just stop here and just say for a minute? So I was looking at what is it that makes a difference in people's lives? Why is it that you can have 2 children who are both born in the same household and one ends up becoming a smoker and the other one doesn't? How can you have 2 children who are both born and raised in the same household, twins, and one ends up a druggie or in prison and the other one becomes a model citizen? What's going on? And I found that the answer to that question was the choices that they make. Choice is what ultimately dictates. Obviously, a huge percentage of it is their genes, but the turning point, the larger part as to what dictates whether one ends up in prison, one ends up becoming a millionaire, one ends up becoming a druggie, one ends up having a family, being married for 50, 60 years. What makes the difference is the choices that they make. If you make the choice today to actually write down these goals, I promise you that most other people, I can almost guarantee, if we asked 100 people in your life if they've ever written down what they actually want, they've sat down and said, I am so serious about my life, I'm so serious about doing good, I'm so serious about winning, I'm so serious about the better future for my kids, for my nephews, for my mum, for my grandparents. This is not a joke. My life is not a joke, right? If we asked 100 of your friends, how many of them have written their goals down? Maybe 1. And I mean, we are really stretching it. Maybe 1 would have written them down. So this is how you now separate yourself and get into the 1% of society. By you writing your goals down, separates you because you've just made a choice which is completely different to what everybody else does. If you want what very few people have, you will have to do what very few people are willing to do. Most people will not write down what they want. They won't write it down. Do you know how many people have listened to this workshop for weeks and they still have not wrote down their goals? They still haven't done it. I speak to people all the time that like, Cassim, I've seen your workshop for weeks, and I say, wonderful, show me your list of your goals. Yeah, but Cass, yeah, but, you know, and it's actually unbelievable. And that's why I say, actually, it's not me who says it, but many people will say that the hardest step that you can take is the first step. It really is. This step is so simple. Turning your life around, having an incredible life is so simple, but it is so difficult because the biggest enemy that you're going to have to deal with is you. Many of you are sat at home, you're alone, and nobody right now is stopping you from going to the printer, going and getting one of those letters that you had through the door this week, going on the back of it, turning it over and write what you want down. Nobody's stopping you. The only person who's stopping you is you. And so this is how you begin to change your life. As you write down what you want, go big, guys. Go crazy. Build the life that you actually want, not the one that you want to settle for. A lot of people settle in life for what they can have instead of going for what they're capable of getting, right? If you really want to see how far you can reach and you really want to see how high you can really go, you really have to go for it. Because if you actually attempt to go really far and go really high and go for more, if you don't end up getting it, at least you will end up having tried. At least you will end up in a position in your life where you've got more than a person who didn't try at all. There is a saying that goes something on the lines of, and I'm going to paraphrase it, it goes something like this. He who can read but doesn't read is in the exact same situation as he who cannot read. That's a very powerful statement. That's a very, very powerful statement. He who can read, the person who can read but doesn't read, is in the exact same situation as the person who cannot read. If you have the ability and you live in England, you know, you guys have heard me talk about the English dream. I get really irritated when people talk about the American dream. The American dream is bollocks. The chances of you actually making it out of America and living abundantly and living that American dream is really, really difficult. Let me tell you what is very, very realistic. What is very realistic is the English dream. The English dream is far much more attainable. In England, you can go to any school, you can do online workshops, you can do open university. You can get yourself into a position where you have Wi-Fi, you can work in a cafe, you can work in a library. In England, you can go into a library and basically read any book. You don't even need a library card. You can walk into the library, pick up any book that you want in a library on any subject and read all the books that they have. If any of you in this who are listening to me today were to decide that you wanted to be an expert in an area, you wouldn't even need money. All you would have to do is leave. Obviously, we're in a COVID-19 right now, so most libraries are closed. But I actually checked because I knew some of you would try to be clever. I went to Reading Library and I spoke to them and they said, if you register yourself, you can choose any book that they have and you will go and just collect it. And you obviously have like 2 weeks to return it or whatever it is. But they will even make the books for you. And all you have to do is go and pick them up. Free. So what I would share with you is dream. Go crazy, go mad. You know, let me share with you some of the goals that I wrote down. I wrote down that I wanted to visit New York. I wanted to send my mum to New York. I wanted to interview a president. I wanted to have a meal with Eminem. Have at least 10 houses rented out before I die. I wanted to love myself. I wanted to get to a point where I have £1,000 saved. I wanted to be a millionaire. I wanted to be successful, and I wanted to be happy as well. I wanted to get to a point where I could pay for my sister's weddings if they needed me to. I wanted to inspire other men to become higher, fuller expressions of themselves. What are your goals, guys? What do you want? What would you like in the next 5, 10 years of your life? Who would you like to become? What experiences would you like to achieve? This week I set myself a new goal actually, which is in the next 5 years, I want to have visited Antarctica. That's my next goal. I wrote that down this morning. So this morning I was actually researching Antarctica and the trips. And I found out this morning that it's going to cost about 10 grand to go to Antarctica, and it's going to take me about 23 days to do it. Maybe for you is to learn how to read, to get a passport, to get your own driving license. I have a friend of mine at the moment, and she has been trying for years to get her driving license, and she still hasn't passed. I have another friend of mine who's actually a really good driver, but cannot pass her theory. So she's set herself a goal to pass her theory test this year. By December 31st, she wants to have had that certificate that says you've passed your theory test. Maybe for you it's to publish a book, to have 3 kids, to get married, to travel to every continent on the planet. Maybe for you is to get out of depression, beat cancer, run a marathon. You want to watch the entire Marvel collection of movies, beginning with the first movie that they've ever made. You want to watch all of them, including the cartoons, or the animated ones. You want to get to the point where the outside world does not affect your emotions. You want to sing a duet with Adele. Remember, this exercise is not about you being realistic. This exercise is about you dreaming. This is about creating. You want to be like a child. Go crazy, go mad, right? Remember what I said earlier on? Jim Rohn said that you're either being pulled in one of 3 directions: the past, the distractions of today, or the future. Build and create and have such goals that they are pulling you, that you want to go into the future. Here's how I can tell if somebody has really good goals, that their goals are going to stretch them, that their goals are going to help them grow. Here's what happens. Number 1, people around them say things like this: how are you going to do that then? Well, that's stupid. Well, that's unrealistic. You say you want to do, as if you can actually do something like that. Do you think you're better than us? What do you mean you want to become a millionaire? What? So are you not grateful? Oh, well, I've heard what it means when you have that kind of business. I've heard what it means to have that kind of money. I've heard people who live in that kind of neighborhood and are good. If nobody in your life is fighting you, if nobody in your life is telling you that, how are you going to do that? That means you're not even trying, because basically you are not outliving what they see of you. Most of us operate our lives based on what other people think that we can do. Most of us operate our lives. In fact, I wrote down something as I was preparing for today, which is that I wrote down that most of us operate our lives based on the attachment to old identities, relationships, and dreams. Many people who are listening to me today, you are attached to who you've been. Cassim, I've always been the quiet one. Cassim, I've always been the person who is the organizer. Cassim, I've always been the one who gives in the relationship. Cassim, I've always been the person who is being single. Cassim, I've always been the person who's, weirdly enough, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I quote, okay? I was talking to my friend Jamie yesterday, and I said to Jamie, why are you not higher than another person who we know? And because I remember they both started out in the same company around the same kind of time. And I quote what Jamie said to me. Jamie said to me, Cassim, well, the reason why I'm not as high as the other person, whose name I won't mention, is because I decided to go with my manager. I decided to follow my manager. Wherever my manager went, my manager would take me along. And Jamie said to me that the other person decided that they were willing to cut loose relationships and people they were close to, not close to, but who helped them get to where they wanted to get to so that they can achieve their higher goals, so that they can be able to live better. The reason why this other person decided, by the way, to not follow this person, the boss, is primarily because he started a family. So he needed more money. So he couldn't stay in that position. He needed to increase in order to actually provide for his family. So maybe for you, that is you're attached to old relationships. Or even worse, you're attached to the dreams. Cassim, look, this is a person I thought that I was going to be the rest of my life. I thought I was going to be an accountant. I thought, Cassim, that, I was going to be in a position where this was a person who I was going to marry. But now I'm starting to see cracks in the relationship. I spoke to a friend of mine earlier on in the week, and I said to her, is your boyfriend the one? And she paused. She paused for too long. You know when you ask someone a question and they pause for too long? And I said to her, he isn't the one, is he? And she walked off. Now, they've been having loads of arguments recently, but before, about 6 months ago, she was like, he is the one, he is perfect, they're going to get married, they've been to France, all this incredible life. And what began to obviously appear is that she realised, holy crap, he's a bit immature. Like, for example, on the weekends, all the time I would ask her on the weekends, oh, what did you get up to? And she would say to me, like, for example, last weekend she said to me, oh, I waited around for Connor to finish playing the PlayStation so we can go to McDonald's. Now, that's okay if that's the life that you want to live. But I think she began to realise life can be so much more broader than waiting around for a guy before you can do something. And so cracks have begun to appear. But she doesn't want to accept that. I wonder how many of you who are listening to me have come to a realization as I've been talking to you today that you're probably going to have to let go of an identity, a dream, or a relationship that you've invested huge amount into. I remember I interviewed my mum and I said to my mum, Mum, can I ask you, you've obviously been on the planet for quite some time now. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned in your life? My mum said to me, Cassim, the biggest lesson that I've learned is to learn how to say no to people. I thought, wow, what a really bizarre answer my mum's just given me. My mum, by nature, is a very giving person. So, for example, if you need somebody to take your kids to school in the morning because you have to rush off to work or something, my mum, if you call her 10 minutes beforehand, she will rearrange everything and help you take your kids to work. My mum is a kind of person who, if somebody says, can somebody work half an hour later, everybody will say no, but my mum will say, fine, I'll work half an hour later. My mum is that kind of person. But my mum got to a point where her entire life was so stretched, she was so stressed out, she actually became depressed. And she had to go to counselling and stuff like that. And she realised, oh, right, okay, I'm going to need to actually stop saying yes to everything in my life. Some of you have got to the point where you've started to realise, in order for you to get to the point where you are happy, where, I don't know, you may have wrote down, Cassim, I want to get to the point where I have peace in my life. I just want some peace, man. I just want to be able to wake up and be at peace. I don't want this war going on in my head every day, right? Like there's this monkey clapping a freaking You know those Chinese monkeys that clap the things? I'm sick of it. I just want some peace in my life. And in order for you to reach that place of peace, you're going to have to say no to everybody. You're going to have to live by my philosophy, which is to say no at first, and then think about it for a day. If it meets your goals, if it meets where you're going, then you can say yes. You may have to be like that. So that's the first exercise we want to go through. So you want to continue doing that exercise, keep going all the way as far as you can down there. The goal is to write about 500 things that you want. If you can write down about 500 things, you will have built what is called a vision. A vision is defined as a better picture of today. You want to build a picture that is so bright, that is so exciting, that is so inspiring that you want to go in that direction more than being distracted by the distractions of today or by what you did or who you were before. I remember I was once listening to Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins said that many people in their lives, are able to complain and talk about the good old days. They can talk about what used to be. They can talk about how bad things used to be. They can talk about how amazing and free they were at 20. Many people can do that. In fact, most people can do that. Then very few people can see things as they are, things as they exist. Very few people can operate from truth. Like, look, Cassim, my weight is shit. I hate my body. I don't love myself. I'm not at peace with myself. I don't have vitality. I don't feel like my body has kind of a plasticity where I can move and I feel free and I can go upstairs and I don't have problems. Many people are in a position at the moment where they don't feel in their own lives that they cannot accept the fact that they're in a relationship which no longer serves them. I remember I was listening to go off on a tangent slightly. I was studying divorce lawyers because I wanted to understand what is it that people talk about. Like, what do divorce lawyers see every day? What is it that they could give me as advice that I would like to know as Cassim when I go into a relationship? And one of the things that many of the lawyers talked about is that many of the lawyers talked about the fact that a lot of people got themselves in positions where they just would not accept the divorce. That actually what drove the divorce into thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, way more than it should have, is because one of the parties refused to get divorced. They wouldn't accept that the other person didn't love them anymore. They wouldn't accept that somebody didn't want them to be in that relationship with them in that relationship anymore. They refused. They said, I don't want you to divorce me. And this wasn't about being attuned and working it out and working through the resolution. This was at a point where somebody had gone through years and years of a relationship, of being unhappy, of trying to work it out, and they've hit a breaking point. They've got to the point where they're not going to be married to this person anymore. They just don't care, right? And they said what adds on the money and pars on the money is just people will refuse to accept it. They don't want to go through the divorce. And maybe you've got to the point where you're like, Cassim, actually maybe the person who I started off with was amazing and they were fun and they were great, but they no longer serve me now. I remember I was listening to one lawyer, divorce lawyer, who said that the person who you choose as a girlfriend is a very different person to the person who you choose as a wife. And he was giving some examples where he was saying that the person who you can choose as a girlfriend, there's something really exciting about somebody being, for example, in the cooking world or in the arts world, or somebody being a musician. There's something really exciting about being with somebody like that. But when you start looking for somebody who's going to be the mother of your children, you have to think about, okay, hold on a minute. If my wife is working from 6 a.m. in the morning or from 5 a.m. in the morning and they're working until 11 o'clock in the evening, who's going to look after our kids? How are we going to be able to have sex? How are we going to be able to go for walks? If this person is constantly traveling around the world because of their music, how are we ever going to supposed to create a stable home? If their job sometimes fluctuates in income, how are we ever going to how are we ever going to be able to plan for our children's better future? And some of you who are listening to me, you've got to the point where you thought, boy, I've been with this person for a long time and they've been great. The issue is, now the dreams that I've grown, I've matured, the dreams that I have for myself now, this person is not going to serve them. They don't even want to. They're not interested. The life that I have, they don't want to come with me to that life. So now I have to make a choice. I either drum what I want down to what they want and accept the life that they want, or I'm going to have to depart and go in the direction of my dreams alone and believe in myself and believe that it will work out and follow my gut instinct. Something for you to think about, but build about 500 things of this incredible future. The last thing, by the way, that I wanted to say on that train of thought, which is that Tony Robbins said, the last one is that a lot of people, that a very minute amount of people can see things better than what they are. Very, very, very minute amount of people can create a future, can see things better than what they are. If you are able to create a future better than what it was and what it is at the moment, you are now becoming what is called a leader. Okay, so that's the first exercise. Second exercise we then want to get into is that we want to then give, basically, if you've written about 500 things, you would have come to the point where you've realized clearly you cannot do all those things, right? So now, and this is where I guess you're going to have to become a little bit wise in thinking, because one of the statements that I wrote down here is that not everything was meant for you. Everything out there is possible, right? So for example, me as Cassim, I had to get to a realization in my life that whilst I love cooking, I love food, I love eating it especially, cooking wasn't meant for me. It just wasn't. I know that if I decided to become a chef versus me becoming a speaker and a teacher, which is what I actually wanted to do, that I would be unhappy, I would have regrets. And I would get to the point where I'm like, I would hit a plateau. And what I've come to realize in life is that if you do not follow who you were meant to be, or who you were designed to be, or operate in an area of your gifting, there is a ceiling, there is a limit as to how high you can rise. There is a certain energy, a certain vibrancy, a certain frequency that you operate on when you're operating from purpose, when you're operating from an area of gifting. People, like for example, people ask me all the time, Cassim, do you not ever get tired? And I'm like, guys, I don't really get tired very often because number one, I'm a very healthy person anyway. But number two, I do things that I love. I speak, I coach people, I try to write books, I try to find ways in which I can share strategies and tactics and philosophies with people. That doesn't make me tired. I love it. In fact, if anything, the more people I help, the more fuel I get. And what I would share with you is, it is now time in this exercise to decide what is meant for you. And you will have to discern this. This is why I say it takes a bit of wisdom now. This is where you now are really creating your life. You no longer are settling, you no longer are experimenting, but you're now creating your future. You're now looking at your life and saying, hold on a minute. Do you know what? My mum said to me I should become an accountant, and it's a great job, and it's great, but deep down inside of me, I know that really my path is in computing. I love graphic designs. I love it, right? It's a bit more riskier. I can make a lot of money out of it, but, you know, it's just my mum, but then I'm going to have to disappoint my mum, and then my mum is going to be happy, and then I'm going to, here's what I would recommend to you. I've come to realize that if you want to resent your parents, if you absolutely want to get to the point where you hate your parents, follow what they want you to do. If you want to love your parents, if you want to respect your parents, if you want your parents to respect you, do and go after what you want to do. Because number one, you're going to work harder because you want to prove it to them that you can do it and it is the right path. But also your chances of it working out are better because you're going to be doing something that is yours, that you decided to go after. The chances of something failing when it isn't something that you originally wanted to do are high. Because every single time that you fail, instead of saying, well, now I know what I shouldn't do, you will say, I knew this would never work out. This is another reason why I knew this was a stupid path. So instead of the failure being fuel, failure becomes a handbrake in your life. And in order to become successful, you will have to fail. In fact, I say to people that the quicker you fail, the more successful you will become. So in scoring your goals, in what you want to do is that you want to now give, I've actually jumped a step ahead. I've been so excited in telling you this, but I've actually jumped a step ahead. I've missed out I've missed out a step in sharing with you today. So let's go backwards a little bit. Let's go back. Okay, so the next exercise that I actually wanted to tell you, and it is, I mean, all of these are all interworked in each other anyway, so it doesn't matter, is after you've wrote down your goals, you want to give your goals a number between 1 and 10. The number between 1 and 10 equates to how long it's going to take you to achieve it. That's actually what you want to do next, right? And then after you've given each one of those goals of yours, for example, if one of your goals is to go to Disneyland and it's going to take you 7 months to save the money, give the goal 1 year. And the point is, you want to give all of those goals a number, and then count up how many 1s and 2s and 3-year goals and 5-year goals that you have. And the point that I wanted to get to in saying that, and why I said that exercise, is that you want to see how long ahead you're thinking. Because you want to try to get away from the mentality of microwaving your life to building your life. You want to try cooking everything. And the metaphor that I use is that if you go down to McDonald's or you go down to KFC, you can get a meal very easily. It'll be prepared for you in 5 minutes. 5-10 minutes, you'll have a meal. But if you really want pride and you want respect and you want to have that sense of, I've done this, you got to build it yourself. You got to create the meal yourself. You got to start from scratch. You've got to go down to Tesco's or Aldi or whatever shop, and you got to buy the ingredients. You got to bring them home. You've got to cut them, clean them, prepare the meal. Then there's got to be a waiting period. That is much longer, but it's more fulfilling. I can share with you that many people who achieve success, and this may be a bit bizarre to many of you, there are a lot of people who have everything in life and they're still unhappy. The word that is a common word that they use is, I feel empty. I feel unfulfilled. And what they mean is they didn't go after something which got them into a space and a place where they were like, I couldn't have done any more. I could not have done any more, Cassim. And so in order to do that, some of the goals that you may have on your list may need to be goals that are much longer ahead. But also, you need to also have small goals, because the small goals are what are called confidence builders. Because when you have the small goals will give you confidence every single time you achieve them. So if you set yourself a goal to save, let's say £4,000, every month that you save £100, tick. That builds your confidence. It builds momentum. It gets your self-esteem to rise. And the more that you keep doing that, and the more closer you get, the more intensity you have, and the more vigor, and the more you want to go after whatever it is that you want. Right? Now that then, whilst you've done that, which then takes us to what I was talking about earlier on, which is then you've got to prioritize your goals. Which ones do you want to go after? Which ones are meant for you? Which ones are not meant for you? Jim Rohn once said that don't major in minor things. a lot of you guys, there are goals on your list which are not important, right? So the way that I did this, by the way, is combining these 2 points in saying this statement, is that the way that I thought about this was like this. I thought that if I die, what things do I need to have achieved to die with peace? You know, when people die, one of the things that we say, may he or she rest in peace. I was like, okay, for my family, my kids, my grandkids, for them to say that, what would I have needed to achieve in my life to die in peace? And you may begin to very quickly realize that some of the goals that you have are not going to bring you peace if you go after them. So, for example, I had down on my list of goals, one of my list of goals was to own a Rolls Royce. That was, I really like the cars. I think they're beautiful. But I realized, do you know what? If I died and I hadn't owned a Rolls Royce, I would be okay. But here's what would be a problem for me. If I died and hadn't written a book, that would be a problem for me. That would be a proper issue for me. I would regret that. So I prioritized writing a book over owning a Rolls Royce. Rolls Royce is, if I get it, wonderful. But it's not the end of the day for me, right? And so what I would share with you is, don't major in minor things. Some of the things that you're going after may not just be that important to you. They may be wonderful and everything, but they just simply are not that important. And what I would encourage you to do is that I would encourage you to go after what is important. Go after that which fulfills you. Go after that which, when you get to the end of your life, you can say, I'm done. Okay? I'm done. Cassim, I can do no more. What more do you want from me? I've finished. I've tried. I've given it a go. I've lived. I've loved. I've fallen out of love. I've gone after my dreams. Sometimes it's worked out. Sometimes it hasn't worked out. What more do you want from me? That is the life that I desire for you. After you've then done that, what we then want to get into is that we then need to write down who you're going to have to become to achieve some of the dreams that you want. Now, the first 3 parts of this goal setting workshop that I gave you, most people kind of know, right? Write down, decide what you want, give it a time scale, and decide when you want to achieve what by then. Most people know how to do that. Here's what most people don't know how to do. Decide who they're going to need to become. In order to have things that you've never had before, you're going to have to become someone you've never become before. And some of you who are listening to me, you are literally going to have to go through a metamorphosis. You're literally going to have to go through a dramatic change in attitude, in thinking, in philosophy, in strategy, in tactics, in your appearance, in your mannerisms. I mean, it's going to be a whole revamp in your life to truly become the person that you need to become in order to get the life and build the life that you really want. Others, for those of you who are listening to me, for some of you, it's just going to be tweaks. You actually already, you're not poor, but some of the things about money, for example, your money blueprint, isn't quite right. Some of the, your relationship is good, but to get it to a whole new different level, you're going to have to go to a deeper level of understanding of women, of love, of asking better questions. And so you now need to learn how to ask even better questions of your missus. So, for example, at the moment, you know what she likes, you know what interests her, but here's a question that you might not have ever asked your missus. Say to, babes, can I ask you a question? What do you fear most? That's a serious question. And I'm not talking about spiders. I'm talking about not being loved, being betrayed, not feeling worthy, disappointing my parents. What is that fear? See, that's a serious conversation. I can already feel me even just saying that changes the whole tone of this workshop because it's such a deeper question. But if you want to get to that kind of depth of a relationship, you have to change the types of questions you ask your missus. And some of you, whilst you kind of have fun and everything's exciting, you don't really know your missus at the core of who she is. Like, babes, can I ask you a question? What is your biggest fantasy? You can tell me. I don't care. I know it may be filthy. I know it may be weird. I know, like, it may be creepy, whatever. I want to know what it is. What would you like to do? Dress up? I don't know. Get tied up? I don't know what it is. What is that thing? Like, babes, I'm going to share mine with you as well. In fact, I'm going to share mine with you first because I want to show you how open I am. See what I mean? Very interesting. A lot of people have never asked their partner that. Something for you to think about. So, who are you going to need to become? Let me share with you some of the things that I needed to become. So, I needed to become wise in thinking. I got to a point where I was like, do you know what? I'm going to have to become wise in thinking. Because if I'm going to coach people and I'm going to teach people, I'm going to need to be able to give them good advice. I need to come up with ideas and philosophies and strategies and tactics. I need to have good answers. I realized that I needed to become somebody who had integrity. Because here's a problem that I encountered. At the very beginning, when I first started coaching people, I'd give them advice, but then they would see me and say, but Cassim, you're not doing it. So I very quickly realized that as a teacher, if you start telling people about certain things, you best be doing it. So now, I made a promise, very early on, I made a promise, which was, I would never teach anything that I myself have not done. Right? I can make a recommendation, but I will not say to you that this worked for me and this will work for you unless I have personally done it myself. So, for example, everything that you've seen me talk about in this workshop, I've done. Everything. That's why I can speak so confidently about it, because I know that it works. I know of the effect that it had on my life. I can speak from a place of conviction because I believe it. I would be willing to put my life on it. That's how much I believe that it works. I needed to become somebody who was non-judgmental. Some of you may have to write down that you are going to need to become somebody who's more outgoing, more charismatic, somebody who's more approachable. I was speaking to a friend of mine who left her job recently, and I said to her, why did you leave the job? And she said to me, well, I had an exit interview, and I said to the woman when I left my exit interview that part of the reason why I was leaving is because I didn't think that she was approachable. You know, and I didn't really like that. Some of you guys may, who are listening to me, you're managers, and you want to become a great manager. And that's one of your goals. But in order for you to become a great manager, one of the things that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to become somebody who people aspire to become like. Because when we see people who are above us, they either are an example of the person who we don't want to become. Well, I don't want to become like that manager, or they become an example of exactly the kind of person who we want to become because they have what we want, they are who we would like to be. And some of you who are listening to me in your managerial positions, nobody aspires to be like you. Nobody wants to have your lifestyle. Nobody wants to be like you in any way. Nobody wants to have your attitude. Nobody wants to have your kind of determination and work ethic. No, people don't want to be like you. And in order to influence people, in order to be a great leader, you've got to have people behind you who want to follow in your footsteps, who would like to have the same kinds of life or results that you have in your life. And you may need to become somebody who is actually aspirable. So, for example, you may need to quit smoking. A lot of people don't find people who smoke as something which they aspire to want to be like. And a lot of us are not used to having a model or somebody who's better or who has more than us as somebody who smokes. Others, you may need to give up dressing and speaking the way that you want to speak. So some of you, I have a friend of mine who was struggling with making it into management. And I said to him, can I suggest to you that you stop speaking to everybody as if they're your buddies off the street. Start speaking to people in a professional manner, because people take you seriously. We all expect people in a workplace to behave in a decorum, to say please and thank you and madam and sir. You don't call customers who are paying your bills mate and buddy. You call them sir, madam, not because they're better than you, but because it's polite, because it's professional. And you may need to become. Can you imagine a CEO of a company or a director or a regional manager seeing a customer and speaking to the customer as buddy? It's never going to happen. And so what I'm saying to you is, in order for you to evolve into that person and achieve that kind of goal that you have, you may need to become that kind of person who people aspire to be like. Something for you to think about. Something for you to think about. The other thing that I wanted to finish this off is that life was not designed to give us what we want. Life was designed to give us what we deserve. The farmer does not get the harvest because he's a good person. The farmer gets the harvest because he planted. I wonder whether you are the kind of person who realizes that you cannot have an incredible life unless you've done the work beforehand to get an incredible life. Are you the kind of person who realizes that you cannot be a happy person unless you've done the work to become a happy person? The person is a result. When you see somebody rich, wealth is a result of what everybody was doing. Let me put this another way. People are rewarded in public for what they've practiced for years in private. What is it that you're going to be doing and working on yourself and reading books and refining that when you get to, that when people see you, they say, oh, you're just lucky. Oh, you're just gifted. Oh, you're just one of them people who just gets it. What is it? Maybe you thought to yourself and you thought, you know what? In my life, I'm really going to have to be somebody who, is a nice person. And is somebody who doesn't get angry all the time. And so when people, you've had to, in private moments when somebody has cut you up as you were driving home, you've had to control your emotions. Become the kind of person who controls your emotions. And then when people see you at work and a customer is complaining and a customer is being abusive and you're being very calm and you're like, madam, let's step into my office, I apologize. They just think, oh, you're just so naturally good with people. What they haven't realized is all the work that you've done in private when nobody's been watching you to deal with that. I have to do that all the time. For example, at the moment, I have to deal with yesterday, actually, coincidentally, I had to deal with forgiving somebody, right? I had to forgive somebody yesterday who really annoyed me because let me tell you exactly what happened. So yesterday, my bike actually got stolen. So my bike got stolen yesterday, and I was furious. I was furious because I was going for like literally, it wasn't even 30 seconds. It was like 20 seconds. And I was furious, and I was like, why would you take my bike? And as I was walking back home, I said to myself, Cassim, it was your fault. Did you lock the bike? No. So why are you complaining then? And I remember speaking to myself yesterday, and I was like, right, okay, forgive yourself, forgive the person. You don't know their circumstances. You don't know why it is that they stole the bike. Would you steal a bike if you weren't desperate? No, of course I wouldn't. Would you steal a bike if you hadn't been brought up with the philosophy that it's okay to steal a bike? No, you wouldn't. Okay, so would a good person steal somebody else's bike? No. So that means that person has been brought up in such a way or is desperate or is in such a situation that they feel that the way to get ahead is to steal. So I was like, okay, cool. I forgive it. And I struggled with that. I struggled a lot. And I was like, no, but they stole my bike and they shouldn't. And then I was like, Cass, hold on a minute. It was your fault. Right? And I went through this battle with myself. But many people see me all the time and they're like, Cass, you're so calm and you're so relaxed. People have no idea. Right? I get so many disappointments in my life, but I constantly have to work on myself to ensure that I don't, digress back to that mindset which I used to have before. So that's what I would share with you. The next thing that we then want to get into is the why. Here's a comment for you. If you had enough reasons, you could do the most remarkable things. My question to you is, why would you give up everything in your life to follow these dreams? Why? Why would you give up your security, your pension, to go and start this business? Why would you try to make a fool out of yourself by trying to write a book and get enemies? I mean, one of the things that happens that many of you, I'm sure, will know is that the more successful you become, the more enemies that you have. So my question to you is, what is so exciting? Why would you go through all of that, getting enemies, people hating on you, the aggravation, people being annoyed at you, people being jealous of you, people being resentful at you? Why would you go through all of that? For what reason? I'm going to make a suggestion to you, and this suggestion actually changed the course of my life. It's this. It's a philosophy that I live by. People will do more for others than they'll ever do for themselves. That philosophy altered the course of my life. Human beings will do more for others than we will ever do for ourselves. See, I discovered that as Cassim, I'm pretty okay with not very much. I'm all right. Like, I could be okay with just like earning like 800 quid a month, and I would be all right. For what reason could I possibly want to become a millionaire? I wouldn't. I don't need all that money. I'm okay. But here's what I discovered. You will desire to become a millionaire if your life is more than just about you. Because you realize, if I become a millionaire, what could I do? Who could I help? What people can I invest in? I absolutely love that show, Dragon's Den. And, not Dragon's Den. Yeah, Dragon's Den. And Shark Tank. And the reason why I love it is because you have all these men and women who've achieved success in their different arenas, but they keep wanting to succeed more. And I ask myself, why? Why would they want to? I mean, they have more than enough money to take care of themselves, their family. So why do they keep working? Why do they keep putting all this effort? And what I realized was that they want to earn more money, in part to try and invest in businesses, create more opportunities, right? Help other people, invest in good people. But they can't do that if they're broke, if they're poor. And so what I would share with you is, it's good to, for example, say, Cassim, the reason why I want to lose weight is because I don't like my body. That's okay. But it's got to be bigger than that. The reason has to... what I try to tell people is that you want to keep asking why. And you want to go about 9 levels below why. So, for example, let's just use an example. Cassim, I want to become a millionaire. First question is why? Well, I want to become a millionaire because nobody's ever done it. Okay, why? Well, because I want to be the first person in my family to say, I've done it. Why? Because I want to show other people that it's possible to do it. Why? Because, in part, I also want to show myself that I can do it. Why? Well, because I don't want to be defined by other people as that I'm only a one-trick pony and that it isn't possible, and I don't want people to define my life for me. Why? Well, because I don't want to be in a cage, because I don't even know what my own potential is, so how can anybody know what my potential is? Why? Well, because my life is a lot more important and significant than just earning scraps. Like, my life is so much bigger than me, struggling every single month when I can have so much more money. And plus, I can't even help anybody else if it's just I am only struggling myself. If I'm earning, let's say, £1,500 every month, and my friend loses his job, and I'm just barely making it, even if he needed my help, I couldn't even help him. Why? Well, because it's important. As a human being, I realise that we're all part of the human cycle, right? We're all connected. Everything is connected. We all need each other. I'm not on this planet alone, so I need other people as well to flourish. I want other people to win, because the more that they win and the more that they evolve, the more that they can help other people. And all of a sudden, it becomes this incredible circle of life. Why? Why? Because what else more am I going to do with my life? You tell me. If I don't strive, if what? Okay, I can party and I can get drunk and I can go on holiday. So much more, to such an extent. And then what? What else am I supposed to do? Why? I don't know why. But do you see what I'm saying by when I talk? You just have to give. Can you see how much more driven I am to become a millionaire than somebody who just says, I want to become a millionaire because I want the money? It's a completely different level of aspiration, isn't it? So go about 9 levels down, and the more you want to make it an emotive why. So basically, when you start going after your dreams, all the floodgates of obstacles will open. So automatically, you've probably already noticed the first floodgate. The first floodgate is yourself. There is an African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, the enemy on the outside can do us no harm. The first obstacle you will have to overcome is yourself. If you are so brave and so courageous that you actually overcome yourself, then all the other outside obstacles will then come your way, right? But what I'm saying to you is, in order to overcome all those obstacles, you need to have an answer and a why, which is so much more bigger than you, that you will overcome it and overcome all the obstacles as they start coming your way. I found that the higher up you go, the more pressure there is. So, for example, if you take a rocket, the reason why a rocket finds it so difficult to leave Earth's atmosphere is because there is a gravitational pull. The more power that the rocket actually tries to get out of gravity, the more gravity tries to force it down. And that's why it needs a rocket. It has to have something so much more powerful than gravity that it can push through gravity in order to get into orbit. My point to you is this. If you want to force through and push through all the immediate obstacles that are going to stop you to getting to your dreams, your parents, expectations, the reasons why you don't, the lack of resources, the lack of belief, all of those, you will need a reason which is so much more bigger than just about you. Would be my personal recommendation. That's what I found anyway, is what I would share with you. The last thing that I then want to get into is, to finish today off, is research. So research is really about doing something. If you've got to this point and you've listened to me and you haven't done any of the other exercises, I saved this one last because this one is really the thing that which really will make the biggest difference. Because this one mandates that you actually do something, that you step forward, that you participate. Because research, what happens is that when you begin to research an area, one of the things that happens is you begin to get information. Information alleviates fear. Knowledge alleviates fear. When you know about snakes and you understand them, and you understand what they can do for you, and how they can attack you, and what their desires are, and why they would want to bite a human being, the more you don't fear them. This is what happened to me because I was really scared of snakes. But when I started to understand, snakes would only attack a human being if it feels threatened. A snake would only attack a human being if it felt that there was no other way of it escaping. A snake would rather escape from something bigger than itself than attack it. Even if a snake bites you, the chances of a human being ever dying from a snake is so minute because of his blood. Most snakes in the modern world do not have enough venom to kill a human. You feel unwell and you vomit and you get sick, but you'll never actually die from it, right? And we have cures a lot of the time, and we can do blood transfusions and all sorts of things. So the chances of you actually dying from a snake is very little. How many chances can you as Cassim actually see a snake in modern Britain? Not very high. So what are you scared of? Nothing really. You see what I mean? So this is about taking whatever it is that you want and researching it. So earlier on I mentioned to you that this morning I added down on my list of goals that I wanted to go to Antarctica. So this morning I started researching Antarctica. How much is it going to cost? Where do we go? Whereabouts? How dangerous is it? what is the success rate of going there? How long does it take to get to Antarctica? It takes about 23 days. How much does it cost? It costs about 10 grand. Um, what times of the year do you usually go? What activities can you do, right? I found out you can go skiing, you can go boating, you can climb icebergs, you can do all kinds of things, right? And so I was like, okay, this sounds really cool. And I was like, okay, so how would I go get 23 days off of holiday? Right, okay, I probably won't be able to do that unless I've running my own business, or I've got enough income coming in, or I've saved that money to the degree that I've got not only have I got the 10 grand, but I've also got the 23 days worth of pay in my bank to basically take 23 days off. Okay, right, all right, that can work. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to need to save roughly, for me to live on to pay all my bills for 23 days, give or take, will roughly be something around £10,000. Okay, so £10,000, so you're going to need to, in total, save about, give or take, what, 20 grand. Okay, how are you going to save 20 grand? All of a sudden, the more you start researching this, the more it becomes a reality, but also the more it alleviates fears. And also the other great thing that happens when you start researching whatever area you choose or goal is you begin to gain momentum. Momentum is activated the moment you start doing research. John Maxwell says that a momentum is a leader's best friend. When you can start going after what you want, when you can start moving, right, you have what is it that they say, the inertia. They say that anything that is moving can only be stopped by something getting in its way that is got enough force to stop it. If you take a train and you put 2 blocks of wood in front of it and you try to push it, that train ain't going nowhere. If you take a train and you get it to 90 miles an hour and you put a wall in front of it, the train will smash straight through the wall. Why? Because when it's got momentum, when it's got speed, when it's moving, it is much, much easier for it to break through stuff. What I'm saying to you is, if you can begin to research what you want, what's going to happen is people are going to start asking you, well, how are you going to do that? You then have answers. So when a family member says to you, oh, you want to become a writer, how are you going to do that? You can say, well, I'm going to start off by, I've already decided I want the book to be 9 chapters. I really want the book to be a bit like J.K. Rowling's book. I've researched it, and I can, instead of me going via a publishing house, I can actually self-publish my book, right? Because my goal isn't to make millions of pounds off the book. My goal is to just get a book published, right? Do you see what I mean? All of a sudden, you have answers, and the more answers that you have, the more you have to fight people and things that are going to come up against you. And the other thing is, when you go to recruit people, because you're going to need help, it's easier to get the help of other people if you've already got momentum. So if you can say, look, for example, I remember when I was a kid, I used to say to my dad, Dad, I really want a bike. And at first I used to say to Dad, I have no money, I need a bike. And he said, well, tough, son. But many times I learned that if I go to my dad and say, Dad, I've saved £200, right? And also, when I get paid this month, I'm going to have an extra £50. I'm going to have £250. Can I have 150 from you so I can buy a better bike? My dad had a lot more chance of saying yes to me than if I'd saved nothing, right? That momentum, me having already had some kind of success already, enhances my chances of succeeding in future endeavors. So that's what essentially I would share with you, which kind of winds up today's workshop. I don't know whether it's been useful. I don't know whether you've caught anything off today. I don't know whether anything is triggered for you. I'd love to hear about what goals you've written down. Maybe to have a baby, maybe it's to travel around the world. Whatever it is, I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, Cassim on YouTube. That kind of finishes today. So thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in next week's workshop. Bye for now.